Have you ever been so tired of something that you couldn't tell whether you needed a break or maybe you were just done? Maybe you're sleeping, but you're still tired. Or you take the day off, you try to relax, you tell yourself you just need to recharge, but somehow that energy just never really comes back. Because here's something I feel like we just don't talk about enough. Sometimes we're tired because we need rest. And sometimes we're tired because we're carrying something that still needs to heal. And sometimes we're tired because we're spending so much energy doing things we don't want to do, or we're living in a way that goes against what our soul actually wants. And no amount of sleep is going to fix that. So today, we're going to figure out the difference. Hello, fantabulous souls, and welcome back to Psychically Speaking with Lisa Ann, the place where intuition meets real-life truth with just the right dash of sass. I'm your host, Lisa Ann, psychic medium, intuitive healer, intuitive coach, and your guide for clarity, healing, and soul-aligned living. Now, let me start by saying something really obvious. Sometimes you're tired because you're tired. You haven't slept enough, you've been running around like a crazy person, you've had too much on your plate, you've been taking care of everyone else, and your schedule has been ridiculous. Sometimes the answer really is go to bed, take the day off, turn your phone off, stop doing things for just 5 minutes. Not everything has some big spiritual meaning attached to it. But there is another kind of tired. It's that feeling that you get when you rest, and yet you're just still tired. You take the entire weekend off, and Sunday night comes around, and you can already feel your energy dropping. Or maybe you go on vacation and you feel wonderful, but within hours of coming home, you're right back where you started. Or maybe there's one particular person, responsibility, job, situation, or just that part of your life that you can almost feel draining you before you even get there. Those are the moments that I think we need to stop and ask ourselves, why am I so tired? And we need to start asking, what is taking so much of my energy? Because those are two very different questions. Sometimes we're exhausted because we're carrying things that haven't healed. Resentment takes energy. Anger takes energy. Grief takes energy. Constantly replaying something that happened 5 years ago takes energy. Trying to control things that you have no control over takes energy. Being the strong one for everyone else and pretending things don't bother you when they absolutely do, that all takes energy. And sometimes we've carried something for so long that we don't even realize how heavy it is anymore. We've gotten used to it. It's kind of like walking around with a 30-pound backpack every day and then wondering why our shoulders hurt. And this is where the healing becomes so important because you can go take a bath, go on vacation, meditate. You can spend an entire Sunday on the couch watching absolutely ridiculous television shows. And all of those things can help you rest. But rest and healing aren't necessarily the same thing. Rest can replenish your energy, but healing changes what's draining it. And sometimes that's where we're really being asked to look. But there's another reason we can feel exhaustion that I think sometimes gets overlooked. Sometimes you're tired because you're spending a tremendous amount of time doing things you simply don't want to be doing. And I'm not talking about laundry. Nobody's soul is standing there screaming, yes, let's fold another fitted sheet. So there's always going to be those things in life that we have to do that we just don't necessarily enjoy. I'm talking about something much deeper. When you're repeatedly going against yourself, when you keep saying yes, when everything inside of you wants to say no, when you stay in situations because you think you should, when you're living according to what everybody else expects from you instead of what actually feels right for you, and when you're forcing things that your soul has been trying to move away from, that all takes an enormous amount of energy. Because now you're not simply doing something, you're fighting yourself while you're doing it. Part of you is moving in one direction, while another part of you is pulling you the opposite way. No wonder why you're tired. Think about how much energy it takes to drag yourself somewhere that you don't want to go, to keep showing up for something you don't believe in anymore, to keep pretending that you're okay with something that you are absolutely not okay with, or to continually talk yourself into staying somewhere that your soul has already begun leaving. That is absolutely exhausting. And sometimes your energy starts changing long before your circumstances do. You may notice you're procrastinating more, you're having trouble getting motivated. Those things that used to excite you just don't anymore. You feel irritable, heavy. You just feel like you're going through the motions. And then immediately we think, what's wrong with me? Maybe there's nothing. Maybe you're just simply trying to force yourself to continue living in a way that no longer fits who you're becoming. And that's where today's question comes in. Are you tired or are you done? Because there's a difference. Tired says, I need a break. Done says, I don't want to keep doing this the same way anymore. And notice I said the same way, because being done doesn't always mean completely walking away from something. You might not be done with the relationship, but you may be done with the way you've been functioning inside of the relationship. You might not be done with your job, but you may be done saying yes to everything and constantly taking work home or cleaning up other people's messes. You might not be done helping family or friends, but you may be done dropping everything every time somebody calls because they know you'll fix it. And you may not be done with your business, but you may simply be done running your business in a way that completely exhausts you. And that's a very different conversation. Sometimes you don't need to leave your life or escape your life. You just need to heal the parts of you that is exhausted from living the same way. So here's one way that you can begin figuring this out. First, give yourself some actual rest, not just sitting on the couch answering emails, not taking the day off and then spending 6 hours doing chores, not going on vacation and checking your phone every few minutes. Actually giving yourself permission to step away. Then pay attention to what happens when you return. Does your energy come back? Do you think, okay, I needed that. I am ready to go again. I feel recharged. I'm excited and I have my energy back. Or does the exhaustion immediately return the minute you think about the situation? Because that is very valuable information. If rest restores you, then you've simply maybe been a little depleted. But if your rest, your recharge feels great, and then the minute you step back into one particular area of your life, you feel your entire energy drop, then maybe the problem is not how much sleep you're getting. Something there needs your attention. Now, before someone listening to this podcast up and quits their job, leaves their spouse, sells their house, and moves to a beach somewhere because Lisa Ann said they were tired, that is not what I am saying. So please first take a nap, right? Seriously. Do not make permanent decisions from temporary exhaustion. When we're depleted, everything feels harder. So give yourself enough space to determine whether you're reacting from exhaustion or responding from clarity. And remember, recognizing that something needs to change does not mean that you have to know exactly how you're going to change it. You do not have to blow up your entire life. Sometimes the first change is very small. And that brings me to 3 things that you can start doing right now to shift your energy. So 1, I want to focus on stopping the energy leaks. So for the next week, I want you to pay attention to where your energy leaks out. What are you doing out of guilt? What are you saying yes to when you really want to say no? What conversations are you having over and over again? What problems are you continually trying to solve when they aren't even actually yours? And what are you worrying about that you absolutely have no control over? I want you to pick one, not 17, not a million, just one. And I want you to change your relationship with it. Say no, step back, ask for help. Stop checking, stop explaining, stop fixing. Put a boundary around that. You may be amazed how much energy comes back when you stop giving it away somewhere that it doesn't belong. Now, number 2, I want you to add something that just ignites your soul, just lights up your world. We spend so much time trying to remove the things that drain us that we forgot energy also comes from what we add. So ask yourself, what makes me feel like me? Maybe it's being outside, maybe it's painting, maybe it's music or gardening or going for a drive. Spending time with that person who just always makes you laugh. Or taking a class, working on something creative. Or maybe for you, it's simply sitting quiet with a cup of coffee or tea before everybody wakes up in the morning. It doesn't have to be something productive. And actually, I'd prefer if it wasn't. So choose one thing this week that gives you energy simply because you enjoy it. Put it on the calendar. Not if you have time. Make the time. Because sometimes healing isn't about doing more work on yourself. Sometimes healing is remembering what makes you feel alive and excited. And finally, number 3, I want you to start asking your soul a better question. Instead of asking, how do I make myself keep doing this? Ask yourself, what would feel more in balance or more aligned for me? Because that's a completely different question. And don't immediately demand a 5-year plan for yourself, okay? Maybe the answer is as simple as, I need a little more space. I need help. I need to slow down. I need to have a conversation. I need to stop doing this one particular thing. I need something creative in my life again. Or I need to change how I'm showing up. And you know what? Maybe the answer really is, I'm done with this particular thing in my life. Remember, you don't have to act on that answer immediately. Just be willing to hear it, because your soul shouldn't have to scream before you're willing to listen. So here's your challenge for this week. Think about one area of your life where you have been feeling exhausted and ask yourself these 3 questions. Do I need rest? Is there something here that needs to heal? Or am I spending my energy trying to force something that no longer feels right for me? Don't judge the answer, don't analyze the answer, and don't immediately try to fix everything. Just observe, just notice, just be aware. And then choose one of the 3 energy shifts we talked about today. Stop one energy leak. Add one thing that excites you. And ask yourself what would feel more aligned or imbalanced. One small shift. That's it. Recently, I was doing a healing session on a client, and they were just so exhausted, so drained. They came in because they weren't feeling well. They had no energy. They had some fluky health issues going on. They used the word, they were just so confused and overwhelmed. After the healing session, we talked for a few moments. It was very interesting because they were volunteering their time for something that for many, many years just excited them, just gave them purpose and meaning, and it was something that they loved. But now it had become something heavy, something they felt very obligated to do. And when I talked to them about it, and it wasn't, a job, it was something that they were volunteering for. So it wasn't like they couldn't remove themselves for it because they needed the money or anything like that. But it was interesting because when I asked them why they kept doing it, their response to me was, because I don't want to disappoint anybody. I don't want to let anybody down, and I don't want to leave them stuck. And I remember sharing with them that I've been in that situation many times where I'm either giving my time or volunteering for something that may start to shift or change, or maybe my life has shifted or changed, and now it's just not feeling the same anymore. And what I shared with them was I've always found it interesting because I think when we get involved in something, there's obviously a point in time when we're very excited. That's why we choose to do it, right? It gives us that good feeling. But when that feeling ends, we don't stop to think, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to just give myself permission to move on in a different way. I've given my time. I've, donated my time. I've helped in this instance, this organization or whatever it was. And maybe it's time for me to step away so I can open up a space for someone else to come in and take that spot over. Someone who is going to be just as excited as I was when I first stepped into that spot. For some reason, we don't think about things that way, right? We think, oh, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to disappoint anybody. But we don't think sometimes, you know what, if I move on from my job or this volunteering that I'm doing, I'm opening up a space for someone else who's going to be just as excited as I was when I started there. It's not always about letting people down or disappointing people. It's about sometimes we outgrow the space that we're in. And it's really that simple. And when you decide to move on from that job or that place that you're volunteering, that opens up a space for someone else. So one final thought. Being tired doesn't always mean you're done. And being done doesn't always mean you need to walk away. Sometimes you just need rest, healing, and a boundary. Sometimes you just need joy. You need to finally acknowledge that something you've been forcing simply doesn't fit you anymore, and that's okay. Remember, your energy is information, so pay attention to what drains it and pay attention to what restores it. And especially pay attention to what happens when you begin living a little closer to what your soul has been asking for. Because sometimes the answer isn't getting more sleep. Sometimes the answer is creating a life you do not need to constantly recover from. Thank you for joining me today on Psychically Speaking with Lisa Ann. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who needs this message. When you're ready for more, head on over to spiritquestnc.com and click Welcome Podcast Listeners right on our homepage. There you'll find free resources, tools, and simple next steps to support you on your soul journey. And of course, you're always welcome to join me for Psychically Speaking Live, my free weekly Zoom gathering where we connect, reset, and prepare for the week ahead. So until next time, trust your intuition, honor your truth, and keep shining your light.